Whatever you are eating, the child is watching. You can't eat fufu and you come and give the child cocoa. They are watching. So at a time, they will start giving you attitude and they will stop eating because you are eating something else and you are giving them something else. Toddlerhood, that is between 1 year and 3 years. Coming to toddlerhood is actually a striking stage for children whilst they are growing up.
Okay.
And at this stage, that is where nutrition plays a very key role, because at this point, a lot of development is ongoing, and so we would want to take the nutrition very, very seriously. Coming to the nutrition, at this stage, children are very dicey, and it also depends on every child, because even though they are all at the same period of this developmental stage or milestone, it depends on the child's weight or depends on the child's height. These are parameters that or indicators that we use when it comes to the nutrition of the child. And so with the nutrition, the food groups are very important. Protein, carbohydrates, fats and oil, the minerals, and then the vitamins. Unlike adults that would encourage that our meals should be high in fiber, low in fats, but in this stage, during this stage, we already encourage that their meals are high in fats, low in fiber rather, and then high in protein. Because at this point, cognitive development is ongoing, socio-economical development is ongoing, or emotional development is ongoing, and then the physical as for which we all tend to see. So if you don't feed your child very well during this stage, it means that the child would be lacking this growth and this development. And later in life, it's really going to affect the child. And also the nutrition during this period will affect the child's preference in life, the food preference, and then the behavioral approach to food later in life. You have cases where people will say, I don't eat banku, not because the person actually hates the food or because when the person eats that particular food has any effect, but because of an experience during that period. So they tend to develop food aversion, which at the end of the day, they don't eat later in life. So with the nutrition, is very, very key when it comes to the nutrition of the child during this particular children during this period. The size of their stomach is 1/3 of an adult compared to the size. And so if you want to fill them with fiber, at the end of the day, the fiber, even though it's needed, it does not...
It takes up all the space.
Exactly.
There's not much for anything else.
Exactly. So we need the protein sources. And then at this stage also, they are developing their gut. That's their gastrointestinal tract. And so we don't want to really burden the gut with the fiber because it takes a longer time for digestion. So we want the one that are quicker in terms of digestion for them to be able to get the nutrients at a faster rate to aid in their development.
You know,
so from 6 months to 1 year, that is when you are starting complementary feeding. And at that stage, it's a transition period for the child. And so during that period, we really focus on texture and consistency of the meals because the child is taking breast milk, which is liquid form. You can't just jump to solid just like that. Because the child needs to take time to adapt. So during that period, we encourage puree foods, foods that are blended. So that the texture of the child of the food would be similar to that of the breast milk. So gradually, we tend to introduce the child to the various meals. So it should be in a puree form, but it should equally be balanced, nutritious as well. But you need to introduce a meal at a time, one at a time. You need to introduce the child to the nearest food that are nearest to the texture and the consistency to the breast milk. We need the breast milk, but in a minimal quantity because it wouldn't match up to the child's daily requirements as the child grows because of the developmental stages. But it's expected that you still continue breastfeeding to 2 years. However, the focus more will now be on the family foods. So the breast milk will just be like now, like a reward or something.
Juice, that
exactly.
To wash the banku down.
Exactly, because it still contains some calcium in there that the child needs. And also during this stage, the toddlerhood stage, if you don't take it, most of the children get iron deficiency condition that they become anemic because as you are transitioning the child, if you don't focus on foods that are rich in iron, they tend to suffer from iron deficiency syndrome. However, during this stage, we need to also focus or look out for allergies because you are introducing the child to new foods. And this period, they are very prone to allergens and most of the protein sources most of the food that this child or these children gets to be allergic to. So parents need to look out for during this period. So breastfeeding, they shouldn't stop breastfeeding, but after 2 years, then they can.
They can throw the breast to the baby at the back, you know, and they are taking it.
When expression should come in,
Yeah.
you can equally express the milk, because the milk we need, not your breast. We need the milk. So if feeding us the milk from the breast is your issue, as I think now you have career women, that's a problem for us. So expression is the best way to express the milk, so the child will continue to enjoy the nutrient in there. However, it shouldn't be now the focus, as I made mention earlier on. The focus should be on the family foods, the solid foods, and then the breast milk will just be like a reward or something.
So can you give us, you know, in practical,
is that you don't just feed the child in isolation.
Okay.
It's a transition anyway, even though
like
we have time. Exactly,
like
exactly. You need to eat as a family. So because with a child, whatever you are eating, the child is watching. You can't eat fufu and you come and give the child cocoa. They are watching. So at a time, they will start giving you attitude and they will stop eating because you are eating something else and you are giving them something else. So sometimes as you are eating, you can give the child a little as building that bond, or as a family. When you serve the child, you are all also eating at the same table or at a sitting. So the child watches what is going on. So you can give the child, at that stage, you can give the child rice. You can give the child jollof. You can give the child, it should be very soft.
Okay.
You can even give the child benku. You can give the child fufu, because you're talking about toddlerhood. That is between 1 year and 3 years. But it all boils down to the consistency and then the texture of the food, because we are very careful about choking. And so if you don't take care, you just go a little bit to yam, as you mentioned of yam. Yam, look at the texture. If you don't mash it,
you adults improve.
Exactly. If you don't mash it, it's going to affect the child. And so, in as much as you want to give the child the food you are eating, because they can eat any of the food that you are eating. However, just look at the texture of the food, change the form or the nature of the food, then they can equally enjoy every food. So most of the time with the fish, you have powdered fish. You also have with the meat, it can be minced. You have minced meat. It can be mashed. It can be cooked to a tender texture to the extent that the child can be able to. At that stage, they also start teething, and they've had about 2 or 4 of the teeth up there. They don't have the molars for chewing, and so you need to make sure that the consistency of what we are giving should be feasible for the child to be able to enjoy. So they can enjoy the meat, the chicken, but it should be flaked. Can be in a flaked form. It can be mashed, or it can be blended with the food or the meal. So are this back to processed foods?
Yes.
During this period, from complementary to this stage, salt is very key in terms of feeding these children. Okay. And most of the processed foods in the supermarkets have some content of salt. It's not necessarily about salt, but it's about the sodium content in the food. We don't really want to burden their kidneys at this stage. And so buying from supermarket and stuff is not advisable. However, you need to check the label if you are buying from there. Then we need to come home, because in our setting, I don't think most mothers, unless maybe a very few that are exposed to a supermarket, that go in there to buy those period foods. But during the toddlerhood, those food needs to be on hold. Let's prepare homemade meals for the children. If you are preparing, let's say for instance, you're having rice, you can have some avocado. You can have even rich fruits, because you encourage that during this period with vitamins and minerals. You want the fruits and you want the vegetables. During this period, they don't want to see the vegetables. So we need to know how to incorporate the vegetables in their meals. We need to blend it as part of the stews or as part of the soups for them to enjoy.
I don't know whether you're the right person to answer this question, but what is it about vegetables that children find so offensive? I think it comes to the texture. That's where the choking comes in, and they find it very difficult when they are eating it. And so and ideally they should like, because it's very colorful. Because kids like colors. Yes, ideally they should like it, but because of the texture, that's how most of them tend to bounce it. And so you need to just change the form of the vegetables, and then eventually they'll tend to enjoy it. Encourage fruits and vegetables at this stage. So instead of the biscuits and then the toffees and stuff, it should be in place of fruits. So you have fruits like watermelon, you have fruits like banana, fruits like apple. It should be chopped too. Even you can do it in a puree form. You can even blend it for them to. You mentioned earlier on, we know these biscuits. Some of the biscuits are made from butter, margarine, and all of that. We just were very careful about the sugary aspect. And so with the texture, the child can gradually, even we can bring in these snacks,
this street snack, is it a chomo or something? I'm just trying to give the texture. Whereas the child cannot grab all at a go, but would gradually will be taking it gradually. Exactly. So with that, it's satisfying the itchiness at the same time it's enjoying the snack as well. So we can also use the fruit as well, and then that would also help. Yeah.
How do you handle children who are?
So it's what you introduce to the child, and every child is unique.
Yeah.
Irrespective of the toddler which they are, and the gender is also very key, being a male or a female. You know, most of the females are quite picky compared to the male. So you just need to know your child. If your child is in a hurry to eat banku fufu, just make sure it's in a texture that will be convenient.
Eating, being adventurous, has translated also in actually being very adventurous with trying.
Exactly. So it depends on the child.
Yeah.
If you have such a child, then you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
Because most parents, their headache, if your child is actually not eating, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
There is a problem. So if your child actually wants to eat, I even have one, a 6-7-month-old child at home right now. This baby would want to eat everything you are eating. And so you as a guide now, or as a parent or whoever is around, you need to be careful. Just try. If they are eager to eat, then give them a bite or just something little for them to get used to the taste and then the preference and the texture and all of that, and then you are good to go.
Fantastic.
I think children are very interesting.
They're very interesting.
Thank you for that. How do people get in touch with you?
All right, so you can get to me on all social media handles as Opulent Dietitian or on zendietconsult.com. You can just reach out, or you can just WhatsApp on 0202 569733.